Imagine, for a moment, a world stripped of its frozen crown. No shimmering glaciers, no towering ice sheets, no ancient frost locked away at the poles. Just water, rising, surging, reshaping the planet beneath our feet. What if all the ice on Earth melted? This is not just a story of melting snow. It's the unraveling of an ancient balance, a transformation that would echo through every ocean current, every weather pattern, every coastline. To understand this epic scenario, let us first look at the grand inventory of Earth's ice, the silent sentinels of our climate, holding secrets of the past and the fate of the future. Today, Earth's ice is a vast reservoir, mostly hidden from view, locked away in the polar extremes and high mountain realms. The greatest stores of ice rest in Antarctica, a frozen continent at the bottom of the world. Here, the East Antarctic ice sheet alone contains more than 10 million cubic miles of ice, while the West Antarctic ice sheet adds another million cubic miles to the ledger. Altogether, Antarctica accounts for about 90% of all the ice on Earth. In the north, the Greenland ice sheet reigns as the second largest, holding nearly 700,000 cubic miles of ice, enough to blanket the entire state of Texas in a layer more than 30 miles thick. Scattered across the world's mountains, from the Rockies to the Himalayas, thousands of smaller glaciers and ice caps add their own contributions, though their combined volume pales in comparison to the polar giants. If you were to gather every glacier, every ice sheet, every pocket of permafrost, and every cube of frozen water from every corner of the planet, you would arrive at a figure both staggering and humbling, about 24 million cubic kilometers of ice. This is the world's frozen inheritance, shaped over millions of years, holding within it the power to transform the face of the Earth. But what if, in a single relentless sweep, all this ice were to melt? The consequences would begin with the sea. As ice turns to water, it pours unstoppably into the oceans, swelling their depths. Currently, the average global sea level is kept in check by the delicate balance between frozen and liquid water. But if all the ice on Earth melted, scientists estimate that the sea would rise by more than 70 meters, about 230 feet. This is not a gentle tide. It is a cataclysmic surge that would redraw the map of civilization. Picture the world as you know it. The bustling cities, the sprawling coastlines, the ancient ports and sun-drenched beaches. Now imagine them vanishing beneath the waves. In North America, New York City, Boston, Miami, and New Orleans would be swallowed whole. The eastern seaboard would be reshaped into a jagged archipelago. In California, San Francisco and Los Angeles would disappear beneath a new inland sea. Across the Atlantic, London, Amsterdam, Venice, and Copenhagen would be erased from the map. The coastlines of every continent would retreat, swallowing vast swaths of land. Bangladesh, with its low-lying delta, would be almost entirely submerged. Shanghai, Mumbai, and Jakarta would become memories beneath the waves. The loss is not limited to cities. Hundreds of millions of people call the world's coasts their home. Fishermen, farmers, families. With a 70-meter rise, entire countries would vanish. Island nations like the Maldives and Tuvalu would be lost forever. The plains of the Mississippi River, the fertile Nile Delta, the storied Thames, and the Rhine, all would become new seabeds, their history drowned beneath the new ocean. The retreat of the ice would not stop at the water's edge. As sea levels rise, coastlines would shift, erasing borders and forcing humanity into a desperate search for higher ground. The map of the United States would be redrawn. Florida would disappear. The Gulf Coast would recede. The eastern states would become smaller. Their land area shrunk beneath the encroaching sea. In Europe and Asia, the story would be the same. Ancient cities, built over centuries, would be lost in weeks or months. As the land disappeared, the climate itself would begin to unravel. The frozen ice sheets are more than just passive reservoirs. They are active engines of Earth's climate, reflecting sunlight back into space and regulating global temperatures. As the ice melts, the planet's albedo, its ability to reflect sunlight, would plummet. Darker oceans and land masses would absorb more heat, accelerating the rise in global temperatures. The result would be a feedback loop. More heat leads to more melting, which leads to more heat. The melting ice would also release vast amounts of fresh water into the oceans, disrupting the delicate balance of salt and water that drives ocean currents. The Gulf Stream, a powerful current that brings warm water from the tropics to the North Atlantic, would slow or even stall. This would alter weather patterns across the globe, plunging Europe into colder, harsher winters, even as the rest of the planet continues to warm. Monsoon systems would shift, droughts would intensify. Storms would grow in both frequency and ferocity. Without the stabilizing influence of the polar ice caps, the jet streams, high-altitude winds that steer weather systems, would become erratic. Heat waves would become more common, and rain would become unpredictable. The world's agricultural heartlands, from the American Midwest to the Russian steppes, would be threatened by drought and flood. The rhythms that have governed life for millennia would be thrown into chaos. Beneath the waves, the oceans themselves would be transformed. The influx of fresh water would alter the salinity and temperature of the seas, affecting the delicate balance of marine ecosystems. Coral reefs, already threatened by warming waters, would face new challenges. The cold, nutrient-rich currents that support fisheries would be disrupted, threatening the livelihoods of millions who depend on the sea for food. Marine life would face a crisis of adaptation. Some species would vanish, unable to cope with the changing temperatures and salinity. Others would migrate, seeking new homes in unfamiliar waters. The great whales, ancient travelers of the deep, would find their migration routes changed. The polar bears, icons of the North, would lose their hunting grounds and be forced to adapt or perish. The loss of ice would also release ancient stores of methane and carbon dioxide, trapped for millennia beneath the permafrost. As these greenhouse gases pour into the atmosphere, they would amplify the warming, driving temperatures even higher. The Arctic tundra would become a source of unchecked emissions, further destabilizing the climate. For humanity, the melting of all Earth's ice would herald an age of upheaval. With coastlines vanishing, billions would be forced to flee their homes in one of the greatest migrations in history. The search for high ground would become a desperate struggle as nations compete for shrinking habitable land. The world's infrastructure, roads, railways, airports, and power plants would be submerged, forcing a reinvention of civilization itself. Food production would falter as fertile land is lost and weather becomes more unpredictable. Water supplies would be threatened as saltwater invades freshwater aquifers. Diseases would spread, carried by rising temperatures and stagnant waters. The fabric of society would be stretched to the breaking point as governments grapple with the challenges of resettlement, resource scarcity, and social unrest. Yet, in the face of calamity, the story of humanity is one of resilience and adaptation. Across the ages, people have survived ice ages and droughts, floods and famines. The melting of all the ice would demand new forms of cooperation, new technologies, and new ways of living. Floating cities might rise above the waves, powered by the sun and wind. Vertical farms could feed the masses, while desalination plants convert seawater into life-giving freshwater. In the shadow of disaster, the ingenuity of human beings would be tested as never before. The melting of all Earth's ice would be a crucible, forging new societies from the chaos, a chance to reinvent civilization for a changed world. But could such a scenario ever truly come to pass? The forces required to melt every glacier and ice sheet on Earth are immense, far beyond the current reach of human activity. Even the most extreme projections of climate change do not foresee the total disappearance of all ice. The timescales involved are measured in centuries, even millennia. Yet the possibility remains, a warning from the future, a reminder of the fragile balance that sustains life on our planet. The ice sheets are silent sentinels, keeping watch over the Earth's climate. Their fate is a reflection of our own choices, our stewardship of the planet. As we stand on the edge of the unknown, one question remains. If the ice truly vanished, could humanity adapt and thrive in a world remade by water? Would we find new ways to live, new forms of hope amidst the rising tides? Or would the melting of the ice mark the end of an era, the final chapter in the story of the ancient lands and frozen seas? The answer lies not in the distant future, but in the choices we make today. The ice is melting, slowly but surely. A warning etched into the landscape of the poles, the fate of the world's ice is the fate of us all. A tale of loss, resilience, and the enduring power of life to adapt and endure. So, as you look to the horizon, imagine the world transformed by water. Imagine the cities beneath the waves, the new coastlines, the changing currents, and the journey of humanity in search of higher ground. The melting of all Earth's ice is a story of endings and beginnings, a question that echoes through the ages. What kind of world will we choose to create beneath the shadow of the vanishing ice?